Now that the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remaster is finally out, JRPG lovers can dig into these classic games again, or like me, for the very first time. I've waited ages for this collection to come out, and after rolling credits on Suikoden 1, I have a lot to talk about. So yes, in today's video, we're talking about Suikoden 1. Is it worth the hype? Is it worth experiencing this JRPG for the first time if you're a newcomer to the series? We're going to discuss all that and more. But before we get to that, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on Suikoden. And I do also want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Konami for providing me with the review code for Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster. This video talks about 1. We'll have another video talking about 2 once I finish that one, which I'll be getting to as soon as I finish editing this video. So anyway, let's get to the review. Suikoden delivers a narrative centered on rebellion, loyalty, and destiny. The story follows the son of a high-ranking general in the Empire who begins as a loyal soldier but quickly finds himself entangled in a struggle against the Empire that I just mentioned. They end up being a truly corrupt government. His journey leads him to the Rune of Life and Death, or the Soul Eater as it's known in the game, which changes the course of his life and the fate of the Empire. Betrayal forces him to flee, setting him on the path to lead a rebellion against the Imperial forces under the influence of an evil sorceress. The narrative here in Suikoden is very much character-driven, with the protagonist recruiting the 108 stars of destiny, warriors, strategists, and misfits who each bring unique strengths to the cause. While some characters receive deeper development than others, the sheer variety makes the world really feel alive. Personal stakes, such as the protagonist's strained relationship with his father and the tragic consequences of wielding the Soul Eater, add a lot of emotional weight to the overarching story. The pacing remains more or less engaging, though some late game stuff feels a little bit underdeveloped. I mean, still, the story's mix of political intrigue and personal sacrifice remains a highlight, delivering an experience that's both heartfelt and memorable. Now, the battle system of Suikoden is one of the most interesting parts of the game, and it changes it up with not one, but actually 3 different options for how you fight in this game. First up are standard turn-based battles. You can control up to 6 party members in turn-based combat, utilizing physical attacks, rune-based magics, and unite attacks, which are powerful combination moves performed by specific character pairings. This fast-paced combat keeps encounters engaging with a leveling system that allows underdeveloped characters to catch up very quickly. Trust me, if you have to put somebody in your party who's pretty low leveled, stick them in your main party and they'll be more or less caught up in 20 minutes or less. Then we have army battles. These large-scale battles use a rock, paper, scissors mechanic to simulate strategic warfare. While, yes, visually simple, these battles reinforce the scale of the rebellion. While you can just guess and do whatever option you want, it's really not that smart of an idea. Instead, it's best to rely on other tactics, such as using the ninjas you've recruited to predict enemy strikes and use support for extra damage, and also beef up your attacks as well. Don't just rush in, otherwise you can risk permadeath for some of your characters and just lose the battle overall. It's not worth it. And lastly, and maybe most interestingly here, are the duels, which are one-on-one showdowns occurring at key story moments. Here you must interpret the enemy dialogue cues to choose between attack, defend, or a special attack. These dramatic encounters emphasize personal conflicts and major turning points in the narrative. So in my opinion, it's best to refer to a guide here, so again, you don't risk losing characters for good. There's not many of them as well, so they are kind of more special standout or highlight moments throughout the narrative of Suikoden. So yes, Suikoden 1's battle system and overall battle gameplay, I guess, is accessible and well paced, and you could say that the battle system is somewhat limited in depth compared to later RPGs or maybe peers of the time, but honestly, it's not a big deal. And by the way, if you guys like weekly JRPG content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because exactly 91% of the people that watch my channel on the regular are not subscribed. It's free, supports the channel, and keeps you in tune with every video I release each week. Now, a defining feature of Suikoden is its recruitment and base building mechanics. As mentioned before, you can recruit over 100 characters, each serving a unique function. Some join the battle party, while others provide non-combat benefits, such as being your blacksmith or opening shops, or maybe even serving as your innkeeper, allowing you to save your game and rest along your journey. The system here encourages you to explore and interact with as many NPCs as you can, rewarding you to take your time if you do try to seek out new allies. And of course, you can play with a guide, which is what I would recommend, so that way you don't miss anything and you get the good ending, because you need to have everybody in order to do that. But you know, you also don't have to as well. And as the rebellion grows, you as the hero establish a headquarters, an abandoned castle that evolves into a thriving base of operations. With each new recruit, the castle expands, adding blacksmiths or an inn or a bathhouse or even some cosmetic features like paintings and elevators. This progression system gives you a tangible sense of accomplishment and investment in the resistance effort. Outside of combat, you can explore towns and dungeons and the overworld, interacting with NPCs and advance the story. Dungeons are pretty straightforward, honestly, with minimal exploring and random encounters that honestly never felt overly excessive. The game's overall brisk pacing ensured that the gameplay remained engaging throughout what ended up being a 20-hour journey for me with Suikoden 1. And I will say, I am a sucker for the overworld map being so darn charming. I love these overworld maps, and how they interpret them with HD remasters is just pure bliss for me. I love it. Suikoden's setting is a well-realized medieval fantasy world rich with lore, and there's so many towns and cities that have their own distinct and unique atmospheres. The NPCs provide insight into the Empire's politics and history and conflicts, and honestly, though the pixel art is relatively simple, it effectively conveys the charm and the diversity of the world. I love it. And the game's soundtrack is another standout feature. The music ranges from energetic battle themes to melancholic character motifs, enhancing the emotional depth of key moments. I will say though, you can definitely tell it's a PlayStation 1 era soundtrack. I think with the HD remaster, maybe they're using the same exact songs, but it's not compressed audio like it would have been on the PlayStation 1 disc. But playing it now, I can tell it's from that era, and it evoked a strange sense of nostalgia for me. I really enjoyed the soundtrack. And yes, while the world map is a little bit smaller than some other RPGs or JRPGs of the time, the game maximizes its setting by ensuring that each location serves a purpose. The presence of missable recruits and hidden content adds an additional layer of exploration, making the world feel dynamic and interconnected. And speaking of the world, getting around is honestly pretty easy. Once the right conditions are met, you can fast travel back to your base and teleport to any town you've been to before. It makes getting around a lot easier and gives you the option to quickly recruit characters that you may have missed along the way, though some characters are time sensitive. Again, this is why it's best to play with a guide. So here's a couple of things that I wrote down that you might want to consider before playing if you haven't played this game yet, and all of these are spoiler free. Tone and themes. Suikoden expertly balances lighthearted moments, but it also isn't afraid to kill off key characters, making some of its emotional beats more impactful. I really like when stories aren't afraid to have these more adult moments and really drive home the fact that you are in a war. There is sacrifice or loss while in a war. Something to bear in mind. It's not like a crazy, oh, everybody dies thing, but it's just, maybe one or two moments here might be a little bit more emotionally impactful because you aren't expecting it necessarily. The game is relatively forgiving in terms of difficulty. Grinding is rarely necessary, and most bosses are honestly really manageable with basic strategy. I honestly don't think I got a single game over, aside from maybe one of the duels, which I was incredibly underprepared for. Army battles and yes, duels can be a bit tricky if you misread cues, but they aren't overly punishing, so play with a guide if you're going to try and make the best out of your experience with some of the army battles and yes again, duels. Now as far as quality of life stuff go, the remastered visuals still retain that PlayStation 1 charm. Having never played the original game, I can still tell you that it's from that era and it looks great. Aside from some of the gorgeous visuals here, like the overall coat of paint on the game and the updated character portraits and all that other stuff, the auto battle feature here is present within the game. I don't know if that was a thing that was in the original game. If it wasn't, they've added it to the remaster here, and it's awesome. I mean, sure, I could play each random encounter, but consider the time saved when all I'm going to do is end up attacking anyway. I really only had to try on boss battles. And this is something to consider, I suppose, as a new player to Suikoden, and I'm assuming that each game in the Suikoden series is like this. It is a retro RPG gem with a compelling story and strong character interactions. If you're a completionist aiming for all 108 characters or 108 stars, I've said this before throughout the video, but using a guide is going to help ensure you don't miss anything important because Suikoden features multiple endings, which are primarily influenced by your ability to recruit all 108 stars of destiny. If all 108 stars are gathered before a key event towards the end, you do get like the best ending, offering you a slightly more hopeful conclusion to the story. However, you don't have to do that. I got the non-best ending, but it was still a good ending anyway, and there are some character interactions at the end that are reflected based on your choices or how many people you got throughout your journey. So if you want the best, obviously play with a 100% guide. It's very easy to do. I really didn't have to try to go out of my way to recruit almost everybody, so you can definitely do it, and it's very doable, and I would suppose under 25 hours, for example. So Suikoden is a foundational JRPG that excels in storytelling, character variety, and strategic gameplay. While its mechanics and presentation may feel dated, I guess, compared to modern JRPGs, its heart lies in its strong character-driven narrative and rewarding sense of progression. The thrill of uniting 108 heroes and watching your base evolves creates a really great and engaging experience that is going to stand the length of your experience. So some pros to Suikoden 1. The story is mostly good with some emotional depth, fast-paced and accessible combat system, especially with auto battles, which I loved. There's unique character recruitment and base building mechanics. There's a memorable soundtrack and wonderful pixel art. And some cons or downsides to Suikoden 1. Some characters lacked development due to a very large cast, and I suppose understandably so. You will kind of gravitate towards a handful of characters if you're kind of emotionally invested into them. The dungeon design is basic with minimal exploration or puzzles, which honestly really didn't bother me. The biggest pain for me though was inventory management being so cumbersome, with each character having a small inventory requiring frequent adjustments. Aside from like preparing for battles and reading strategies and stuff, I honestly felt like I spent more time trimming the fat of my inventory and managing equipment more than anything else. At least I enjoyed doing that though. But you know what? This is just a classic JRPG caveat. I can't complain that much. So if you're a fan of classic RPGs or you're looking to engage in a story-driven adventure, Suikoden, I would say, is a must-play. Though it is a little bit rough around the edges, its charm, depth, and innovative mechanics make it a true standout in the JRPG genre, and honestly, I'm really surprised I haven't played it sooner. I've been waiting for the remaster to come out for ages, so that's really why I've waited so long. But even if you're playing the remastered version, you'll enjoy the best of both worlds. Nostalgic charm with some modern quality of life improvements. I love this game. So Suikoden 1, yes, it's a great game. You guys should definitely play it and check it out. Thanks again to Konami for providing me with a review code for today's video, and I look forward to playing Suikoden 2 and seeing if it's any better than Suikoden 1. So don't forget to like and subscribe. See you guys on another video. Bye-bye.